Christmas to you all. We got a very special video today as it's a sequel, believe it or not. If you all remember, I did a video around Halloween talking about the bumpers from some of the kids' networks from back in the day. And since so many of you enjoyed that video and suggested I do more, I thought, why not do it again, but with Christmas this time? And as a fun little bonus, I thought to spice things up, we can rank some of them by decade to see which network has the best bumpers for this time of year. So like the last time, we'll look at Cartoon Network, the Disney Channel, and finally Nickelodeon from past to present. Present, get it? Hee hee. And then rank what I think best represents each era to see which is the best at showcasing that Christmas spirit. So with that, let's get started with Cartoon Network first. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, as I talked about a lot of the history stuff in the last video, but to remind you, Cartoon Network did start in '93. For their first Christmas, they had a 24-hour marathon called the Christmas Party, or the Cartoon Network Christmas Party. It started on December 24th and went from 6 p.m. to 12 a.m. I don't know what the schedule was for this year, but if I was going to guess, it was probably showing classes just like they did for Halloween. They would have this for many different years, including 97, 98, and up to 2003, where they then took the 97 one and put it on Boomerang from 2005 to 2014. When it comes to the bumpers in this era, there isn't too much, but from what we do have, it was pretty simple and wholesome. The most famous ones were the Elf bumpers, which were also used for the Boomerang ones. Of course, we get to 2000s, and just like last time, we see original show characters pop up. And of course, we can't escape Cartoon Fridays. And just when I thought I got the theme out of my head, it's jammed right back into it. But this time they go a little more simple by just having small Christmas parodies like Charlie Brown, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and A Christmas Carol. So more of a theme rather than a storyline to follow. And of course, we have the city bumpers that make a return. And as last time, they are my favorite, especially the one with Billy from the Grim Adventures using a TV that has a Yule log to quote-unquote heat himself up. I just love that Manny just tells Grim to let him have fun. It's just so silly. There was also the Holiday Rush, was in 2005, showing out the Christmas specials for the shows at the time. The bumpers had the characters and Snowballs singing Christmas carols as they rode down hills. And by the end of the era, of course, we have the nudes again. They have them doing their own versions of Christmas songs, as well as them riding on snowboards, characters giving gifts, and the nudes getting into snowball fights. I have to say, the remaking of the songs is quite clever and made it really fit for the vibe that they were going for at the time. And it's that time where we look at the 2010s critically. Yay! I'm already not vibing with the first 2 years with them reusing the Halloween bumpers for the Christmas ones. While doing this, Gus says that because of that, it still had like the eerie undertone to it, which I definitely agree with, and it's just lazy overall. And yeah, the rest of the 2010s is just meh, like last time. However, the 2020s are actually alright. Like, they're still a little lazy, but there's actually more effort that's being put into the bumpers right now. They are going for like a more wholesome vibe, which is honestly fine and doesn't really need to be much more than that for this time of year. What surprises me more is that they still seem to be showing the older specials from the 2000s, at least from what I can see from 2022, as they were showing the Ed and Eddie Christmas special, which is one of my favorites actually. And the others I finally remembered that I hope they're still showing is the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy Christmas special and the Frosted Home for Imaginary Friends one. Though they're probably not really showing the niche ones like Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer and all of the other reindeer. But hey, what they are showing is better than nothing, and they're having new Christmas episodes, so that's all that matters. Honestly, I like how we're looking so far, better than how we started with Halloween. Let's keep that going and start talking about the Disney Channel next.
Hey, I'm Brenda Song from The Sweet Life of Zach and Cody, wishing everyone happy holidays.
Again, to refresh, Disney Channel started back in '83, and for their first Christmas, they had a special called the Disney Christmas that aired on December 3rd. It was hosted by Jiminy Cricket and would show shorts/songs from other movies and specials made prior to this, like their version of A Christmas Carol. So, similar to the Halloween a bit, I can't find bumpers from this one either, or from most of the 80s and 90s, only a few things here and there. Though what I will say is for '99, they had this thing called Holidays in Concert. Not sure who the first two are, but I know who NSYNC is, so that's interesting. And the bumpers for this time were also interesting, as they were pretty inclusive with the Hanukkah-themed designs, as well as Christmas, of course. They were pretty simple for the most part, which isn't a bad thing, really, as at least they look like they put a lot of thought into it. But of course, we have a lot to cover with the 2000s. I don't know what it was about this era of time, other than nostalgia, of course, but it seems like they had the most fun with the bumpers. My favorite one that I remember fondly was this animated Santa one, where he lights up a Christmas tree and we see him in the ornaments shaped as Mickey Mouse ears. And of course, the Disney Channel logo behind the snow-themed backgrounds with Christmas colors were pretty simple but nice. Again, I just like the overall look of this era. And of course, we're right back to the dark ages with the 2010s being lazy with their designs again. To a point from 2017 to 2021, they didn't really bother changing their bumpers. Shout out to Mark Liu specifically for having a comparison video showing that they didn't really change. Like, alright, there are some differences, but like the fact that they use the same narrating voice for all of them just says a lot.
Ho, ho, ho. We'll be right back to the show on Disney Channel.
And they have the same like bland font / design that I talked about in the last video. At least the narrator is giving more excitement than the designs. And since we already looked at some of the 2020s already, we know that the designs don't really improve that much. I mean, last year I noticed it's more of like a clean aesthetic with the font they use, but like clean doesn't always mean interesting, at least to me. Of course, it's time that we talk about the specials, which at least they're still showing like new episodes for the shows. I mean, yeah, at this point, like I'd be surprised if they didn't for this time of year. Though what I don't know if they're still showing any of the classic ones, like That's So Raven with the Mall Santa, or the Good Luck Charlie episode and or movie, and of course just Phineas and Ferb. I mean, I hope they're showing them, even if it's just like later in the evening. Well, we fell back a little this time with the Monster stuff, but it could be worse, I suppose. But that means we should look at Nickelodeon for the final network we will cover today. So for Nickelodeon, they started in 79, and I couldn't really find much of how they celebrated their first Christmas, nor was I really able to find much for the 80s. Kind of for the last two channels, there wasn't really much for the 80s era, but I guess that makes sense since it wasn't until the late 80s to early 90s that more people had access to VHS players. Though there's quite a bit for the 90s, and I like how they did with their bumpers. They try to play it cool with the 90s style with the way they have the narrator, while also keeping the designs pretty wholesome and fun. It just feels like the era of time it comes from, and it really shows how much effort they put into their stuff. Especially the claymation style they had at the time really works well here, my favorite one being the gingerbread people ice skating. And then we get to 2000s, and they're just as good here. And they stick to the claymation style by doing a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer parody, as well as them singing We Wish You a Merry Christmas and the 12 Days of Christmas. Honestly, so far, I feel like they really celebrate the holiday the most. The second most is, I feel like, Cartoon Network. They just put so much effort into these bumpers and made time to get the voice actors for them. It's just so fun to see. And here we are in the 2010s again. Ugh. Let's see how we do here. And... oh. Well, still simple. They actually put effort here. Well, not so crazy with the animated stuff. They actually do a lot with the live action stars for 2011, with them mostly syncing Christmas stuff. So, kind of like the 2000s. And the other years are okay. Nothing crazy, but the designs are more toward the live action stuff, as I mentioned before, so it doesn't look too cheap. So, for once, the 2010s are alright. But for the 2020s, pretty bland for the most part. Like, not the worst by far, but mostly just a boring feeling, I guess. They did a thing called Nickmas at the start of the 2020s up until last year, where they started doing SpongeMess for SpongeBob. Like, there is effort of trying to make the bumpers more exciting, but the execution just falls flat mostly. But hey, we are 3 for 3 for what seems to be showing the new Christmas episode, so that's a relief. It looks like they do show the older SpongeBob Christmas special. Gus and I hyped ourselves up by listening to the very first Christmas to me while making this video. I also remember the Very Odd Parents having a pretty good one, and iCarly had a pretty famous one parodying It's a Wonderful Life. Dan Schneider's eel, though. Otherwise, though, I don't know if they're showing any of the older stuff like that. I think while not a solid landing by the end, I think for what we have, it could be worse. But now it's time for the rankings and see which network does it the best when it comes to their bumpers for this time of year. So this is going to be weird how I'm doing this, so bear with me. So, I will pick one bumper that best represents the era that it came from, and from S to F, I will place it where it best fits, and whoever's the most from the higher categories is the quote-unquote winner. We will start with the 90s, since most of the stuff from the 80s is pretty much non-existent, and it also gives Cartoon Network a fair chance since they started in the 90s. So we're going to start up with Cartoon Network, and I'm going to pick the Elf bumpers from 97, as one, I'm nostalgic for them, and two, I think they best represent the time for how simple but wholesome the bumpers were. I think B is a good spot for them, but I know Cartoon Network has better ones for the 2000s. Then for the Disney Channel for the 90s, I'm picking the Be Right Back bumpers from 99, as I like the different designs they have, and they're just pleasing to look at, if a bit simple. I think this one's going to go into C because of that, and they don't really have much for the 90s to best represent them, unfortunately. And to finish off the 90s, we got the Gingerbread People from Nick. Always loved the claymation bumpers from back in the day, and this one just shows how creative they got with it. Definitely an A for me as it's stylish and fun. With that, Nick is in the lead for now. We're now for the 2000s, and for Cartoon Network, I picked the City Bumpers, as they are classic, and I've always loved the characters interacting with one another. I mean, I gotta put this one in S. I know it's a nostalgia talking, but I just love these bumpers so much. And for the Disney Channel for this era, I'm going to put the Santa one. It's simple, but the design of the animation is just so cute and clever. I think I'm going to put it in B. It's good, and it gets me excited enough for Christmas. Rounding out the 2000s, for Nick, we have the Rudolph parody with Rosie O'Donnell. Again, the claymation stuff has always done well with Nick, and just goes back to what I said with Cartoon Network of how I love when the characters interact with one another. So this one is an S because of that. Nick is in the lead, but now Cartoon Network is on the board as well. And now for the 2010s, and yeah, it's gonna be rough out here, but I think for what best represents Cartoon Network from this time is the 2010 to 2012 bumpers that are just redone versions of the Halloween ones. I'm sorry, this one's going into F. It just shows how bland and uncreative they got during this time. Then there's the Disney Channel, and I'm picking the one that technically kind of goes into 2021, but I'm not counting it for the 2020s ranking as it's mostly in the 2010s. But I guess this one's a tad better because they changed it up slightly, but not by much, so it's going into D. Nickelodeon does pretty alright here. I'm going to be picking the 2011 live-action cast, Sinking Sleigh Bells. While it's a little bit of a downgrade from the other decades, it still holds up well enough, so I'm going to put it in the C. Technically, Nick did the best here again, but we got one more decade to go. For the 2020s, I'm going to be putting the 2022 bumpers for Cartoon Network here on the list. While it's nothing too crazy, I like how simple the vibe is, as it's more on the wholesome scale than being boring. I think B works best here for it, as it puts me into the Christmas spirit just enough. The Disney Channel doesn't really improve for the 2020s, unfortunately, and I'm going to be putting the 2024 Fall Holidays on here, as it shows that while it looks clean, it's just too boring still. So it's going to go into C. Not the worst, but it's not its best either. And finally, for Nickelodeon for the 2020s, I'm going to be putting the 2024 SpongeMoss bumpers on here, as it's kind of interesting, but it also goes into the bland category. Again, like Cartoon Network, it's fine, but it's just not their best work. So this one's going to B as well. So now for the final count. The points go by the rankings above C. So with that in mind, the rankings go as follows. The Disney Channel is in third, and weirdly enough, it's a tie with Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, which makes Disney actually in second place? I guess this also shows which networks I watched the most as a kid. You can establish which one of the two is the better one in the comments if you want. But with that, this video is getting way too long, so let's move on to the outro.
The Cartoon Network Christmas Party, tomorrow at 9 a.m. on Cartoon Network.
And that's it for the video. This was really fun just to go and doing a kind of part 2 from the Halloween one by doing the Christmas one. Shout out to y'all who actually really wanted a part 2 of this. I kind of was unsure if this was going to do well or not, but y'all really wanted this, so here we are. A little Christmas present for me to you kind of thing. This was definitely an interesting adventure, definitely different rabbit holes we fell into with this one, especially the weird Coke commercial thing, which if you haven't checked that one out, go check it out. It's very interesting, going and talking about the horrors of AI and how it's kind of taking over everything. But yeah, again, shout out to Gus. I know he doesn't want it, but I'm gonna say it again. Shout out to Gus for helping with this video and not driving me insane with having to do all this editing on my own. So shout out to him. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you like it, like it. If you dislike it, dislike it. Comment below if you want more of this. It doesn't even have to be holidays. It could just be me talking about other bumpers in general from my childhood and just for the sake of it. And subscribe. And yeah, I hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Or, I know Hanukkah already passed, but I hope you all had a good Hanukkah if you celebrate Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day, whatever holiday you celebrate, or you just vibing. Either way, yeah, so I'll see you guys next time. So, bye, guys.